So, anybody here like platformers? Me, I can't get enough of them personally. They're one of my favorite video game genres. Whether it be 2D games, 3D games, easy ones, or challenging ones, platformers will always remain to be a genre I love. I always thought of them as the king of all video game genres due to the high number of platform games out there, especially in the indie scene. Today I want to talk about an old, short, but cute platformer that I personally think deserves a lot more love and attention. That game being Trip World, a Game Boy game released in late 1992 in Japan and early 1993 in Europe. North America got shafted for reasons I'm unsure. This game was developed by Sunsoft, a game company who made some pretty interesting games back in the day, such as the Blaster Master series, the Batman ES game, Mr. Gimmick, and Vestin's Quest. Ugh. Also, I think I read somewhere online that the director of this game, Yuichi Ueda, later went on to direct a game called Genji 2 Days of the Blade. What was that game again?
So here's this giant enemy crab, and you attack its weak point for massive damage.
Oh, that game. But enough about the information surrounding this game. Let's talk about the game itself, starting with the game's plot, most of which is found in this game's manual, something that a lot of old games required you to read if you wanted to know the game's full story. So this game takes place in a world full of this species called the Shabubu people, these cute animal Kirby looking things that come in many varieties. The world's peace is kept by a special flower called the Mitre flower, which is guarded by an elder Shabubu on the top of a sacred mountain called Mount Dubious. However, the peace isn't kept by long, and by not long I mean as soon as you throw up the gate, as a tall shadowy figure wearing a crown, who is actually the world's king gone crazy because of an evil flower, it's not the game's manual is trying to hide that, invades Mount Dubious, takes out the elder with a powerful energy blast, and steals the Mitre flower, bringing the world into chaos. Kind of. With the elder out of mission, it is up to Yakufu, the elder's grandson and the person you play as in this adventure, to head to the king's castle, knock some sense back into the king, and return the Mitre flower back to your grandfather so that the world may regain its peace. Not really a deep or amazing plot, but I'd say it gets the job done for a game like this. Now with the story out of the way, let's talk about how this game plays. As I mentioned earlier, this game is a platformer, and a simple one at that. You move using the D-pad, jump with the A button, and attack with the B button. Your attack in Yakufu's regular form is his piss-poor rage kick, meaning you'll have to get up close and personal if you want to attack enemies and bosses. But don't worry, they don't do damage on contact. They can only hurt you when they're attacking, so this isn't another Super Mario Bros. Freeze situation again. Ugh. And I'll be honest, you won't really need to attack the enemies in the stages all that much, especially the ones in the early stages. Remember when I said the king stealing the Mitre flower only kind of brought the world into chaos? Well, that's because a good chunk of these enemies are actually quite passive and just try to mind their own business. Some of them will actually be harmless unless you provoke them, so maybe in your best interest to leave these guys alone, because you want to be a dick or something. And yes, I did say regular form earlier, as Yakufu can transform into some different forms. Some of them whenever you want, others through temporary power-ups. If you press up and B, you can transform into Yakufu's flying form. Like this, Yakufu can fly through the air by mashing the A button, making any platforming challenge that goes one way a total joke. You can also use it to float to the top of water, but I only found one place where that was useful. Keep in mind, however, you can't change direction in midair. If you attempt to, you'll fall straight to the ground. This also happens when you collide with a wall. Yakufu can't attack in this form, so try not to use it in an area where there's hostile enemies. If you press down and V, you can transform into Swimming Yakufu. In this form, Yakufu can actually swim in water, as well as shoot enemies with bubbles by pressing the B button. Though if you attempt to use this form on dry land, you'll be about as useful as, well, a fish out of water. By collecting these fruit randomly scattered across the stages, you can temporarily transform into some additional forms, like the tail whip form, which gives Yakufu better attack range, the flower form, which gives you the ability to throw seeds on enemies and stun them for a bit, or the ball form, which turns you into an invincible bouncy ball. There are also some secret forms you can transform into if you grab one power-up when you already have another one active. If you get the ball and flower power-ups at the same time, you become a tiny version of Yakufu. If you get the ball and tail whip power-ups at the same time, you become this huge version of Yakufu, which can't even attack. This form is actually using the same sprite as the one that's seen on the title screen, but you won't be seeing this form often in gameplay. You have to go out of your way to see it. In fact, I didn't even know this form existed until writing up this review! Hard to believe, I know. And oh boy, here comes my personal favorite. If you get the flower and tailwind power-ups at the same time, you become...
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, you become whatever the heck that's supposed to be. But the coolest thing about this form is your attack is this powerful energy blast, very reminiscent of the attack the kid used on the Elder. You can take out any enemy with one hit using the attack. Heck, if you're fast enough, you can even use it on the boss on the fourth stage!
Now that's a lot of damage!
And no, there's no additional form when you get all 3 power-ups at the same time. Trust me, I've tried. Now let's talk about the game stages. The game calls them worlds, but come on now, these are stages. You start out on Mount Dubious, the place where Yakupu and his grandfather live. Next you head to Savage Land, this game's jungle/temple level. Then Islet Island, this game's water level. Then Pudding Land, a candy themed level. And finally Mirror Land, the area where the king's castle resides. Yep, there are only 5 stages. When I said this game was short, I mean it's really short. The game could be completed about 20 minutes when you know what you're doing. That doesn't mean the game is a total pushover though, because at the end of every stage, you'll have to fight a boss, some of which can really kick your ass if you don't have a strategy to avoid their attacks and counter-attack yourself. Especially with the final boss, which has 3 different phases, and you're back to the first phase and you happen to kick the bucket. There is a life system in this game, and you can get more lives if you know where to look, but game overs kinda mean nothing, since there's an easy to access level select menu. Just press select when you're on the top and you'll be taken right there. Heck, when using level select, you can even choose which checkpoint you want to be spawned in. Now that's a time saver. There's also a sound test in this menu if you want to listen to the game's music with easy access. Speaking of music, how is the soundtrack to this game? Well, it's really good stuff. Probably the best thing to come from this game. All the music fits the cutscenes and stages they're paired with, and it's just a really good soundtrack altogether for a Game Boy game. I may as go as far to say it has my favorite soundtrack on the system. You may want to listen to some of it after watching this. I also have high praise to say about the game's visuals and presentation, because this is definitely a great looking game for the Game Boy. There are only 2 cutscenes, the opening and the ending, but what we have here looks good, and I mean really good. There's a lot of detail in the stages that didn't really need to be, like this pillar in the room of the second boss, or these enemies in stage 3 which have silky smooth animation. Not to mention most of the characters and enemies in this game are so freaking cute! I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff, I'm sorry. So, in conclusion, Trip World is a decent platformer which had a lot of effort put in where it didn't really need any. Sure, the actual game itself is on the short side, but it's also unique and interesting with Yakupu's ability to change into different forms. The 3 composers who worked in this game did an amazing job with this game's soundtrack, especially with this credits theme, which sounds like something right out of Mega Man. Did anyone else think that too? And again, this is a great looking game for the system, so if you're looking for a short, simple, and cute platformer to play, then definitely take a trip into this game's world. That sounded really corny. So at the end of all this, did Trip World end up leaving much of a legacy? No, not really. It wasn't all that well received by players and critics, and I don't think the game sold all that well, so it kind of faded into obscurity. The most interesting thing that happened is Yakupu reappeared in another game Yuichi Ueda directed called Galaxy Fight Universal Warriors, a fighting game where Yakupu appeared as a boss character. Here he still has his signature short range kick and also has the ability to temporarily transform into whatever character you're playing as. Also, the music that plays when you're fighting him is a remix of the theme that plays during the first 2 phases of Trip World's final boss. But apart from that little tidbit, the game didn't really leave much of an impact, which might be why this game goes for these insane prices on eBay! Yeah, you'll need to break the bank if you want to get a genuine copy of this game. But there are some reproduction costs that people made that don't cost nearly as much, thank god. Or if you want to go the digital route like me, you could just get the game on the 3DS's Virtual Console, and for a cheap price too. But keep in mind it only got re-released on the Japanese and PAL eShop. North America shafted once again. I guess you could play it illegally on an emulator or something. I'm not gonna stop it. Also, that Galaxy Fight game is available on the Switch's eShop if you're interested in getting that too. Now, with my thoughts and research about this game all out of the way, I'd like to thank you for watching this review. This is a game I want to share my thoughts on for quite some time now, so it feels good to finally lay it all out. So now I'm done talking, I don't really know how to end this off. See you all another time, I guess. That went pretty well. I wonder what I should look at next time.